Welcome to week 10 of Bible Studies for Life. We're continuing it in the book of Ephesians. Today we're in Ephesians chapter 4, a great chapter, great truths laid out in the first half of Ephesians chapter 4. I think you're going to love this passage. I love this whole book, everything about it, but I really enjoy this passage in Ephesians chapter 4. We'll start in verse 1. Therefore, I, the prisoner in the Lord, urge you to live worthy of the calling you have received. Now, therefore means because of everything we've looked at before, because of all that's preceded what we've talked about, chapters 1, 2, and 3, he says, I urge you to live worthy of the calling you have received. I urge you, I beseech you, I'm begging you, Paul says, live worthy of the calling. This is one of my favorite verses, one of the first verses I memorized as a teenager. I remember this. His urging to live worthy of the calling. We've been called by Christ, called to follow him, called to be his child, called to be his worker, his servant, his minister, called to be his people. Live worthy. Live worthy of that calling. Live up. The call to the Christian is always to live up, to live the more noble life, to be the better person, to live the better life. That's the urging, to live worthy of this calling. That's his urge. Don't settle. Don't settle for less. I think for me, for probably all of us, our biggest problem is not that we have passion. The biggest problem is that our passion is for things that are so meaningless, things that are so transient. We have a passion for things that pass so quickly. Our passion needs to be set on the higher things. Not that we don't spend any time on the meaningless things, but that our real passion is for the things that are higher, the things that are more noble. This is what we should do. Live worthy of that calling. And then the next two verses, with all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing with one another in love, making every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. He goes on in the next few verses and says, look, there's only one faith, there's only one God, there's only one church, there's only one Lord, there's only one baptism, we're all together, there's just one of us. Therefore, live with humility and gentleness. Live with patience. Bear with one another in love. This is put up with other people's junk. Put up with it in love. Bear with it. Be humble. Be gentle. Be patient. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit. Do everything you can to maintain unity. Look, when we think about life in the body of Christ, when we think about life in the church, life with other believers, his exhortation here in chapter 4 is you do everything you can to keep the peace. Okay? So the question to ask then, have I done everything I can to keep the peace? Have I made every effort to keep the peace? Or am I just saying, look, they need to do something. Have I made every effort? Have I done all that I can to keep the peace? Have I been humble? Have I been gentle? Have I been patient? I mean, like patient, not patient as long as I want to be patient, but actually patient. Have I bared with one another in love? Have I loved them and just said, look, I'm just going to put up with it because I love them? I heard someone who's talked about some of the things that have happened in our culture today and say, what if we treated everybody with love? Wouldn't that change how we respond to everything that they say and whatever they do? Bear with one another in love, right? Make efforts to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. And then he goes down in the next section that we're going to look at here. He talks about the plan that God has for the church and how God has works in the church. And he says this, he himself, that's God, gave some to be apostles, some prophets, some evangelists, some pastors and teachers, equipping the saints for the work of ministry to build up the body of Christ. Okay, these are offices or places of leadership within the church. And this is the Lord deciding who this is, okay? You are called to ministry by him, not called to him by your parents, called to him by your spouse. You are called to ministry by the Lord. You are given a place of ministry by the Lord. And he calls some to be apostles and some prophets, some evangelists, some pastors and teachers. There are different roles, different places within the church, different leadership places within the church, some of them historical, some of them current, right? And what is the job of these roles? To equip the saints for the work of ministry. Now, this is a really important deal. We'll talk about this a lot in punctuation, right? You equip the saints for the work of ministry. There's no comma right here. It's not equipping the saints, do the work of ministry, build up the body. It is equipping the saints for the work of ministry. The role of the church leader is to equip the church to do the work of ministry. It is not the role of the pastor to do all of the work of ministry. He has his work in ministry, but his role is to equip the saints to do the work. It is the job of the church, the lay people, the other people, the body of Christ, to be the body of Christ, to do the work, to be the hands and feet of Christ. It's the job of the church to be the church. Every Christian has a call to follow, to be involved in ministry, to be involved in making an impact for the sake of Christ. It is the role of the leadership of the church to prepare them, to equip them, to get them ready. So pastors and teachers, think about what you're doing as equipping. I am preparing them to do the work. I'm not doing the work for them, but I am preparing them to do the work. I'm not expecting them to do the work without any preparation, without any training, without any equipping. So if you're a Sunday school teacher, a small group leader, you're a pastor, you're other leader in a church, your role, and I would say you're a parent, your role is to equip those that you're leading so that they can do ministry. And sometimes as pastors, we will complain about people not doing anything, but we haven't prepared them. We haven't equipped them. And sometimes lay people in the church complain that pastors aren't doing enough. Our church isn't growing. It must be their fault. Well, you know what? Their job is not to grow the church. Their job is to grow you so you grow the church, right? Do the work of ministry, and that builds up the body of Christ. It builds up the body, makes the body stronger, makes the body more effective, more prepared, more able to do the work. This is how God designed the work of the church. In verse 16, from him, that is from Christ, the whole body, fitted and knit together by every supporting ligament, promotes the growth of the body for building up itself in love by the proper working of each individual part. It's a metaphor that Paul uses often. We've talked about it. In the body, the church is the body of Christ. And he's talking about here from the head, the whole body. Christ is the head, from the whole body put together by him, designed by God. Every part has its place, and every part has to do its work. This promotes the growth of the body. As the body grows, every part gets stronger, and every individual part is able to build itself and work and do its work. So this is why, and I think I may have said it before, but I'll say it again. I know I've said it often, that there's an old saying, 20% of the people do 80% of the work in the church. That is not true. It's not true. 20% of the people can only do the 20% of work that God has designed for them to do. The other 80% doesn't get done. You see, there are things that each person can do that only that person can do. There are people that person can reach that nobody else can. There are roles in the church designed by God for each believer to fill, and if the believer is not filling that role, that does not get done. Think about it this way. If a person is the hand, okay, and they're just not doing anything, the hand has gone limp. It's like useless. Okay, so if you in your body, your hand is useless. If it won't do anything, if it just hangs there, can your foot do the things that your hand is designed to do? No. Your foot going to pick up a pencil? Your foot going to feed you? No. What happens? Those things don't get done, right? The same thing is true in the body. If part of the body is not following God, doing what it's designed to do, then those things that God has designed for that part of the body to do don't get done. Your ear cannot see. Your eyes cannot hear. If those parts are not going to work, then those things don't get done. We need all the parts of the body, every supporting ligament, promoting the growth of the body, building itself up so that every individual part doing its work. We need each other. We support, we love each other because there's only one body, right? So we have to work together. We have to encourage and build up one another so that we can be who God designed us to be. I hope that's helped. If you study this week, God bless you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of the little community, I guess, that we have here, those who watch. And subscribe to our channel if you haven't. Like it, share it. and have a great time this week being the body. Build up the body this week. Encourage somebody to be who God's designed them to be. We'll see you next time.